talking about personal branding for authors, how to create content that boosts book sales and visibility, and why LinkedIn might be your new best friend. Hi, I'm Melody Owen. This is Author Nation Interviews, and we are here to help you write successfully, share your expertise, and grow your impact through your nonfiction book. If you're looking for resources, you can visit authorsnation.online. There will be a treasure trove of resources designed just for you. So whether you're sipping your morning coffee or winding down after a long day, settle in and let me introduce our guest. Justin Vajko is a marketing nerd. His gateway drug? Making up brand names and drawing logos with his middle school buddies, just for fun. He graduated with a BA in graphic design from EW Eau Claire. He then cut his teeth leading the marketing for a $4 million nonprofit, moving them into the digital age with new channels and systems. He joined a 60 million healthcare manufacturer as a marketing team of one, helping grow them to 90 million in 3 years. Justin then became a full-time marketing entrepreneur in 2018, and he now enables founders to grow their pipeline and thought leadership through thought leadership video content, which you can learn more about at www.dialogwithus. Let's welcome Justin. Hi, Justin. How are you?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. You know, my daughter's name is Justine.
Okay.
And every time she orders a coffee and they say, "What's your name?" she says Justine. Later it becomes Justin. I don't know why.
That happens to me. I have the opposite problem. I order
I was going to ask, yes, do you become Justine sometimes?
Sometimes I do. The other times it's Jason. I don't know why.
Jason.
But it's a thing.
All right. Isn't that funny? Well, I'm glad it's not personal to her. All right. So you started out in graphic design, but then you moved to helping B2B or business to business founders. Like, how did that shift happen?
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. I'll give you the short answer. Essentially, I did go to school for graphic design, graduated with a BA, and I took the first job I could get. This was in 2010, so 2 years after the Great Recession. And I took the first job I could get, and it had 10% to do with graphic design and 90% to do with I needed a full-time job. And it so happened in that role, I was able to take on a lot of marketing tasks for the nonprofit I worked for, because when you do one marketing thing, people just assume you know how to do the other ones. And I was interested and curious enough to find out. And so that was I was there for 1 month, shy of 6 years. And over time, was able to learn quite a bit about writing, effective writing, emails, and long form letters. I would be the one eventually. By the time I left, I was the one writing all of their donation request letters, and pretty darn good at it. So all of that taught me how to basically think about marketing holistically. And then from there moved on through my career till I eventually started Dialogue, and here we are.
Yeah, I think non-funding marketing is interesting. So what you're really doing is you're asking people for nothing, and they're like, "What do I get?" And you're like, "Well, there's no product or service for you, but you'll feel good, right?" So
that's right. That is, they inherently know they'll feel good.
Yeah,
but it is still a tough sell. It is still a tough sell.
It can be a very tough sell. Okay, let's talk about personal branding for nonfiction authors. Now, we have a couple of different types of nonfiction authors. We've got the business owner who writes a book, and that helps them, it becomes an asset in their business. There's a professional, a medical doctor, for example, who writes a book, helps with their reputation and their career. And then you've got the nonfiction author who writes, let's say, personal essays, and they've got 2 or 3 books, and they're really looking to sell books and other similar things to make income. They don't have a traditional business like the entrepreneur over here or the medical doctor there, but they all need a personal brand, don't they?
Yeah, you do. I liken it to someone can read your book, but if they forget your name, how useful is that for the next book you sell? Right. Yeah. That's why you want to think about building a personal brand. And when you think about some of the biggest authors out there, that's what they've all done. And now you could argue, well, they've done it through writing a really damn good book. But a lot of them, especially in the business world, they've done it by putting themselves out there beyond just the book and doing, the traditional things that authors are asked to do by their PR folks, the interviews, the media appearances, etc. But there are other ways to build your personal brand that are less scary than being on the news or doing media interviews. Still hard to do, um, but still a little less scary and even, I would argue, sometimes even more effective over the long term.
Yeah, exactly. And one is LinkedIn. I'm really excited to get to that, but I have a couple of questions before we get there. So what type of content actually like moves the needle when it comes to visibility and book sales?
So I can't speak specifically to visibility when it comes to books. We have a couple clients who are authors, but when I know when it comes to LinkedIn and getting visibility on LinkedIn, I can definitely speak to that and how to actually build your personal brand as an author. There are no secrets to building a personal brand as an author versus as a regular business person. Uh, but I will say having a book in your hands while you're doing a video or mentioning that book in a post you write or whatever is definitely a massive game changer for the personal brand you want to write, you want to build.
Yeah. So what should authors kind of stop doing?
Hmm. So if you're this is a great question across the board for LinkedIn. So I'm talking in the context of LinkedIn. I'm a video guy. This is my thing. So I'll answer in the context of what I know best. One of the common things you see a lot of people do when it comes to video content, including authors, is that they might be thinking about doing this as like a speech or presentation. The problem is we have enough speeches and presentations online, and most of them are going to be better than you. So don't try to compete on their field. What you can do instead is think about your content as a snapshot in your life and what you're thinking. So content as you go, so to speak, not these presented speeches, so to speak, no pun intended. So what does that look like? Well, instead of thinking about creating content that is polished and specifically video, but even writing and writing in a way that's just this essay, think about your content as what can I share today that I've learned in the last week? What can I share today that I gave as counsel to somebody in the last week? And you start thinking about your content less as a platform, um, and more as a way to help people. And that's extremely needed in the nonfiction world. Um, and again, all from your experience as an author, not necessarily in platitudes and things like that can
Yeah.
easily be copied by ChatGPT. As an author, you have to have a leg up. You have written something. You are a writer, and so do definitely leverage the as you go approach of creating content with your special your unique voice.
Yeah. And so another question I want to ask you is about being, a lot of authors don't want to feel markety or salesy, but I want to kind of link it to the question we just discussed. The thought that comes to me is, talking about your content and not thinking about it as formal presentation. Does it make sense to make it like you're having a conversation?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And so that ties in beautifully with how I recommend everybody approaches their content. I use a term called the content buddy system. So just like you and I are having a conversation right now, it's a fairly formal affair. It's a podcast type of method. You can do the same thing with a colleague or a peer or even a customer even to create content. And what I mean by that, what the content buddy system does is well, let me explain the process first and then I'll explain what it does. The process is basically you get on the phone or on a Zoom call with a buddy. Again, a peer, a colleague, maybe someone ahead of you, a prospect, maybe you're trying to build a relationship with, and you say, hey, what if we could help each other create content by interviewing each other once a month, once a week, whatever. You decide a cadence, and there's no standard. You're not trying to do something polished. You're just trying to understand one another. And you're asking each other questions from a different perspective than usually we ask ourselves. And you record that session. And then guess what? You've got a recording and you can take the raw ingredients of what you said and you can either turn it into short clips for social media if it's good enough for that, if you feel like it's good enough, or you can take the transcript and let it inspire you for polishing up a little bit more your answers into the written post or both. That's essentially what we've productized and serve our clients, but anyone can do this. And what that does is it removes the stress from creating content. It also removes the excuse if I don't know what to talk about, because guess what? Someone's going to ask you questions. Hey, tell me your story. Hey, why did you choose this? Da, 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 da. And you might not always have an answer, but you can keep whatever you want and get rid of whatever you want. And you'll never run out of ideas because someone else is drawing it out of you through a simple conversation.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I love this. And if you're loving this as much as I do, go check out dialoguewithus.us for more information about how you can work with Justin. And I'm not going to call him Jason. It's Justin. With no E.
That's right.
All right, let's talk LinkedIn.
Sure,
Why
sure,
is it why is it such a powerful platform? I mean, for nonfiction authors, but for anyone. Why is it so powerful?
Well, specifically nonfiction, when you're in nonfiction, you really are talking to a business audience, typically, not always, right? There are, cooking books, there's all sorts of categories of nonfiction. But I know that in the world of business, if your book has anything to do with B2B or selling or marketing or mindset or culture or whatever, you're talking to a business audience. And LinkedIn is really the platform for business audiences that are hungry to learn, willing to do something about it and take action rather than just browsing, viewing, and going on their way. LinkedIn has over 1 billion members now. A lot of people don't realize how big LinkedIn is. That's one in 8 people in the world. And it's probably most, if not all, of the business professionals you look up to in the world have a LinkedIn account. Not everyone. There's a couple I can think of at the top of my head. Some of my heroes are like, they don't have a LinkedIn account yet. I should bug them about that. But most anybody who's anybody will have a LinkedIn account. And what makes LinkedIn different as a platform for your content as a nonfiction author is that you have insights into who's seeing your content, specifically down to the individuals. Whereas the other platforms, you're really just seeing overall big picture things like views and engagement rate, which isn't bad, but it leaves a gap. It leaves something to be desired in terms of how to leverage that information, leverage your content in order to get more opportunities in front of you. So for example, if you're an author of a nonfiction book and you're in business and you want to see who's visiting my profile on LinkedIn, you can do that. You can't do that in any other platform. You can go, I'll view them last week, and you can see if they're qualified as a prospect or a partner. And you can send a connection request. And you can say, hey, thanks for visiting my profile. What drew you to connect? And start a conversation. And guess what? Now you have content that drew someone to your profile, that drew you into a conversation one-on-one, and you have, for all intents and purposes, a lead on your hands in a non-salesy way. You're just initiating the connection. In many ways, similar to how speakers speak on stages, and then often people approach them afterwards and say, oh, that was so good. Could you work with us on XYZ problem? If you're leveraging the speaker approach and the founder approach, or I'm sorry, the speaker approach and the author approach, LinkedIn is the next best thing because it's the speaker and author approach at scale. You're teaching people with your content, which is the author approach, and you're also able to approach people after the event, so to speak, and initiate those one-on-one conversations, which are important for business.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say that I know authors who are on LinkedIn who aren't necessarily business, mental health. A lot of people on LinkedIn are very interested in mental health, personal development, along with professional development, and even how to manage their time, their family, right? How to build relationships with their kids because they're busy working. It's amazing to me how many different types of nonfiction books actually work on LinkedIn.
That's good insight for me, right? I'm not the author expert here, but I can anecdotally confirm that content does work. That's not business content I have a couple newer colleagues of mine, and they're in the fitness space. And their angle, I guess it is fitness business, their angle is busy founders, right? So they're talking about fitness, but for busy founders, where does it make sense for them to do content? YouTube, maybe, sure, why not? TikTok, maybe, sure, why not? But LinkedIn, because that's where the founders are spending time. That's where the founders are themselves looking for clients, but also learning from people ahead of themselves. So it makes sense to be on the platform, at least if you're already on another platform, to just add it and propagate your content there as well and see how far it takes you.
Yeah, and as you said, you want to have a business twist, right? So let's go back to cookbooks. You mentioned cookbook. If you have a cookbook and you want to go on LinkedIn, don't just say, "Hey, here's a cookbook." Say, "Hey, here's a cookbook with, 10 30-minute recipes for busy professionals who still
There you
want to
go.
eat who still want to eat whole foods."
There you go.
There you go, right? And this is something I'm always telling authors when it comes to content. You can go on a variety of different media, different types of podcasts, but you have to fit it to that audience. And
That's
if
right.
you can fit it to that audience, you can be in the right place,
That's
right?
absolutely right. Yeah, that's a relevant lesson for anyone. You don't have to just stay in the one place you think you have to play. If you can adapt it to the audience of that platform, which on LinkedIn is really the biggest difference is business, then
Yes.
then you've got a game plan on your hands for your content to win.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about what type of content we should be putting up on LinkedIn, specifically videos.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to slice and dice what makes for effective video. But ultimately, what I will say is you want your videos, we're talking two things, the type of content, but also the way you deliver the content. When you
Mhm.
do video, the delivery is often just as important as the content in the video. And the first thing I'll say about the type of content, I've been asked this question a few times, what makes for the best video content? And I will say anything that teaches your audience something new. It's not about stats, it's not about stories, it's not about any one type of topic specifically. It's about, is it teaching somebody something new? Which means, when you think about it, any type of content can make for a good video if you then deliver it in the best way. So if you're talking about a stat, maybe you need to cite the stat, show the article in the background of your video. When you're thinking TikTok, when somebody's pointing, see the stat and there's an article header above them, you can do that on LinkedIn as well. My point is that effective video content on LinkedIn delivers value every time. It's not you walking along and sharing your thoughts about the latest thing. Although there might be a gold nugget in there, make sure you hone in on that gold nugget and give it to somebody as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Nobody wants to watch you for 2 minutes to get to the gold nugget. They're scrolling. Your post is probably an accident in their feed. So give them a reason to stop and listen and go, that was insightful. And maybe follow you, maybe take an action as a next step, but they're probably going to move on. And the good thing is if you give them insightful, fast, little snackable pieces of content with your video, whatever it is, and we could talk about some of those tips for different kinds, but the good news, if you do that effectively, if they watch your video and they think this is important, this is good, and they like it, the algorithm is more likely to show them your next video and your next video and so on and so forth.
Yeah, thank you. And talking about that, it's such a nice segue. I think you have a video, an educational video to share with the audience. Could you talk a little bit about what this is?
Which one?
You were going to offer a video for
Oh,
the
yeah.
audience. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things well, I'm on a mission, first of all. My big, hairy, audacious goal, my BHAG, if some of you are familiar with that terminology, is I want to help 10,000 subject matter experts have a voice on LinkedIn specifically. I believe there's a lot of people who are sharing content on LinkedIn who really shouldn't be sharing content on LinkedIn. It's not very good. They really don't have the life experience to speak to it. It's kind of like the life coach, a 20-year-old life coach kind of a thing. And I also believe, the opposite is true. People who should be sharing their content just aren't. And so one of the things I do that fulfills that mission is I give an opportunity for folks who are interested in doing video content and they're maybe a little stressed about it. Maybe they're not so much stressed about it. They just don't have the time to make for it. An opportunity to do a free video session with me. It takes 30 minutes and it produces one edited video. And the reason it works so well and it removes all the stress, or at least most of the stress from the equation of doing video, is because just like what you and I are doing right now, it's all about having a conversation. We set the time together on your calendar. You're held accountable to that time with me. And we meet and I say, okay, move your light over here. Right. There's always technical things to do with video that most people are never aware of, but I'll walk them through that 10, 15 minutes. And then the rest of that time of that half hour is spent just having a really pleasant conversation about what they know best. And then we turn that around and turn it into an edited 30, 60 minute or 60-second video for them to use however they want on their website or on LinkedIn or any other platform.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Where do we find that?
So you can find more about that on my profile on LinkedIn. Go find me at Justin Vajko, Vajko. I'm the only one in the world, so that'd be pretty easy. And that's really the only place. You have to come connect with me on LinkedIn, or you don't have to connect with me, but you can go check that out on my LinkedIn profile. There's a big
Okay.
old button that says get a free video.
Perfect. And I will make sure that that link is in the show notes for everyone, because I know everyone wants to go do that. At least you should. I mean, that's an
Nothing to
amazing
lose.
Offer. Thank you so much. As we wrap up, what are 3 things our listeners can do right now to get started? Like, people who are like, I don't want to be on video. What are like 3 things they can do right now to move the needle forward?
Absolutely. So the first thing you can do is, if you don't have the time, you can make the time by having accountability of another person. We talked about that before, content buddy system. Find a buddy. Maybe if you're really nervous, it's someone you're comfortable with, that maybe they're not in business, but they're willing to give you 30 minutes to just start out and have a conversation. When I've coached people, I've done a workshop and I've had people do this. They were nervous at first, but all of a sudden they were just, the floodgates opened and they got comfortable. And all of a sudden, all this valuable content came out. And so I recommend finding a content buddy and doing your first session and recording it, and not having the standard that we're going to use the video, but maybe you use the transcript and write a few posts from that. The second tip I recommend, and this is one a lot of people don't think about, is if you are in business and you're having a lot of conversations with people, whether it's networking or sales conversations or even with your team, you're sharing content all the time. You're just not capturing it. You're sharing tips. I guarantee you're sharing tips, stats, trends, all sorts of information that is really just staying in one-on-one conversations. So get a software like Fathom, which I use, and record your calls, and then ask Fathom after a call, hey, would there be any topics, or take the transcript and run it through ChatGPT and say, would there be any topics here that'd be useful for content? And then take that and it'll tell you, and then you can decide if you want to write something about that. Now, I don't recommend using Outright just to write the post. It's a very poor use of AI. If you're a writer, you need to write. So use Fathom, though, to capture content as you go, going back to the point we shared earlier. So content buddy system to get some content out that you may not have thought about before from a different perspective. Content as you go with a Fathom type of software to capture what you know. And those really solve the getting it out of you and getting the ideas done. And then the third idea I have for you if you're trying to take LinkedIn seriously, this is a bigger mindset. Go on there, and if you're not sure about writing posts or creating videos, start by commenting. Commenting on LinkedIn, unlike any other platform, has incredible reach. If you go to your feed, you spend any amount of time in your feed on LinkedIn, you'll notice people in the feed that are just leaving comments on other people's posts you don't know. LinkedIn rewards presence on the platform, and one of the ways it measures that is if you're making comments. So maybe you don't have to start with content, but you can start with commenting. As you find your voice on the platform, you get more emboldened, then you can get into content creation.
Yeah. And I love how you talked about just, if you don't want to do posts, just comment. It's one of the best things. So I get these kind of cold messages from strangers on LinkedIn sometimes. It's like, you should do this with me. And don't you want, and most of the time they don't even know who I am.
Yeah.
If they had just started by commenting and interacting with me online and building some sort of recognition, like, oh, I know that name, that person's taken the time to get to know me and has commented on my things. When they then made a connection and wanted to get on a call, I'd be far more open to it. And so I just want to add that. So, find your ideal reader or client on LinkedIn and follow. Don't even ask for connection. Follow, comment, like, share. There's certain people I share their content because I think it's really valuable content. I just want to add that. So it's, that's really, really good advice. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you, Melody. My pleasure.
Yeah. Where do we find you? Remind us where we find you.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. I post almost every weekday, and I try to comment as well. So, you can also find me on my website, dialoguewith.us, and we have all sorts of goodies, resources. There's a free mini course for how to get leads with video. Obviously, there's way more to it than just a couple talking points that I made today. So I'll walk you through some of the technical aspects of it and some of the softer aspects of it, like what does good content look like? I talk about the hook, the meaty, middle, and succinct summary, the 3 parts that make for every good video piece of video content in depth. So all sorts of resources on my website.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you for coming. And
Absolutely.
thank you for joining us today on Author Nations. I hope this conversation has sparked new ideas for how you can grow your author platform, share your message more widely, and create content that actually connects with the right people. Remember to visit authornation.online to unlock a wealth of resources designed to support you. And of course, we're always grateful for your support. And this was a really valuable episode. So please leave a review, share it with someone you know who needs to hear this, and let us know what you'd like to hear next, because your feedback helps us bring you the tools and the insights you need to succeed. So keep writing, keep showing up, and continue to share your stories with the world.